How's it going, guys? My name is Justin.
And I'm Jody.
And we are Board Game Perspective. And we're really excited to bring you guys this Kickstarter preview for Dice Command. Now, Dice Command was designed by Sam Cristall and Tyler Holman, and it is being published by Ejected Planet. Now, we're going to put a link to the Kickstarter page in the description below, so make sure that you guys go click on that, check it out. You're not going to want to miss all of the updates that are coming on that Kickstarter page. Now, just keep in mind that everything that you see here is still in prototype form, so there may be some little tweaks or changes to some of the artwork or some of the components or the rules before this comes out in its final state.
So Dice Command is a semi-abstract tactical war game that plays 2 to 4 players. And as the name suggests, there are dice in the game. Now these dice are going to be your units that you'll be deploying out to the battlefield, and also assigning them to your command cards and tactical cards. Now, so this game is going to be a head-to-head tug-of-war style game where you and your opponents are going to be battling it out, trying to be the first one to get your units behind enemy lines. So there's a lot of different things that you can do in this game. You can work on getting all of your units out to the battlefield as fast as possible. You can work more on engine building and upgrading your command cards. You got tactical cards you can use over here, facilities, or you can work on getting tons of research tokens. So there's a lot of things you can do. So let's do an overview of how to play. So each player represents a military general in their army, and they must build their army and advance their army while carefully managing resources and continually fueling their war machine. So the objective of the game is to be the first player to place 4 dice or units behind the enemy's front line. So for instance, if this player who started on this side makes all the way over here and gets at least 4 dice behind the front line, then that player would win. So let's do a quick overview of the setup. So I've got this set up for a 2-player game. So you got the board here in the middle, and then each player is going to grab a color of their dice and command cards. Now that you have 4 command cards, and they will be face up, shown like here. And then each player will start with 5 of their units or dice in their barracks, and then the other 5 will be in the reserve outside of the barracks. Now every player is going to also start with 3 credits, but the second player will start with 4. And then you'll have a supply area over here with the credits, some mines, and research tokens. You got a player aid over here. And also, you're going to deal 2 facility cards to each player. And then each player is going to choose one and put one of them out here in these corresponding spots. And then you also have the tactical advantage cards. You'll have a deck over here, and then you'll set out 3 face up to start. So basically, you're going to be taking turns back and forth. Now, there are 6 phases for each person's turn. So let's go over that real quick. So the first thing is resolving start of turn effects. And then you'll roll all units in your barracks. And then you're going to assign units, credits, and research tokens. Then you'll resolve assigned actions in any order. And then advance deployed units, and that is optional. And lastly, refresh tactical advantage cards. Alright, so let's go over those phases in more detail. So first, resolving start of turn effects. Could be from cards like this, your command card if you had upgraded your financing one. It says if you have 4 credits in your barracks at the start of your turn, gain 1 credit. So that's a start of turn effect. And there's also some facility cards that are also start of turn effects as well. Step 2 is to roll all the units in your barracks. So you're going to grab all your dice here in your barracks and just roll them, but make sure to not use any of the dice that are in your reserve. The third phase of your turn is assigning units, credits, and research tokens to a few different spots. The main spot are your command cards where you can place these items. Also, there are tactical advantage cards, and then sometimes the facility cards might allow you to place items as well. So let's look in more detail about some of the places where we can place the units, credits, and research tokens. So first, let's take a look at this financing command card. So financing is a way for you to get more credits. So you'll see there are empty black squares. Now those are spots where you can place your units from your barracks. Now here you only need to place one die in order to get one credit later on. But here, because they are connected, you have to place two units in order to get one credit. So for the assign phase, I could simply just put one of my units there. And also, in order to upgrade these cards, which on the back side of the cards are better things that you can use later in the game, in order to do that, you have to upgrade, and this would cost 2 research tokens. So if I had some research tokens already in my barracks that I had earned previous turns, I could then assign those research tokens here. Your conscription command card is a way you can get units from your reserve into your barracks. So what you would do if you want to perform that action is put 1 credit on these locations. So just like the financing card we just went over, this only requires 1 credit, and this will allow you to recruit 1 unit to your barracks, so you could just place a credit there. But here, these are connected, so you have to do 2 credits to get 1 unit. And the symbol here also means you can upgrade this card by placing 1 research token. Your headquarters command card is a way to deploy units onto the battlefield and also advance units that you might already have on the battlefield. So what you would do is you would place a unit that you want to go out in the battlefield on these deploy spots here, and if you want to advance, you would just place a unit there to advance units out in the battlefield. And this card can also be upgraded with a research token as well. The last command card, Research and Development, is a way you can get research tokens and also help towards ending the war. So here, these are connected, so I would have to place 2 dice. So say I put 2 dice there, I could get a research token once we resolve these cards. So this card has a special ability here. If you place 5 research tokens there, you can now place 2 reserve units behind enemy lines, and that's 2 toward your goal of winning. You can also assign units and credits to these tactical advantage cards here. So let's just go over a few examples. So this one here means you would have to place a unit that is 3 or lower, so 3, 2, or 1 value in order to place that there to take this benefit. Here you'd have to have 4 or higher face value, so 4, 5, or 6 to place there to take this ability. And here you would have to place a value of 6 unit there. And then here's another example. This just means you have to have 1 dice there and then place 1 credit. So there's some other examples in the deck as well. There are also some facilities that you might play with that have similar things where you can assign. So I could assign a die there and pay 2 credits to take this ability. Now the 4th phase of your turn is resolving assigned actions in any order. So let's start with resolving the financing command card. So you're going to remove this unit and put it back in your barracks. And that's going to allow you to gain 1 credit from the supply, and then you will also add that to the barracks. And then you have 2 research tokens here to upgrade, so you're going to return these to the supply, and then you're going to flip the card over, and now you have the upgraded side available to you in the future. Next, let's resolve conscription. So I had put 1 credit there, so I'm going to remove that and return this to the supply, not the barracks. And then I'm going to get 1 unit from my reserve and then put it in my barracks. Next, we got research and development. So I'm going to return these 2 units back to my barracks, and that allows me to get 1 research token from the supply and also add to my barracks. So before we resolve this command card, let's go over the different unit types first. There are 3 main unit types. You have light infantry, heavy infantry, and armored division. A light infantry unit is a unit that has a face value of 1, 2, or 3. And these also can move up to 2 spaces straight or diagonally on the battlefield. A heavy infantry is a unit that is with a face value of 4, 5, and 6. And these you can only move up to 1 space on the battlefield straight or diagonally. Now an armored division is a unit that has 2 die stacked like so. And this armored division unit may move up to 1 space straight or diagonally. So in order to deploy an armored division, you have to roll doubles. So say I had rolled these 2 5s, I could then stack them like this and put them on 1 open deploy location stacked. Now the value of the unit that you assign to these deploy locations will be the value of the unit when it goes to the battlefield. So we'll be deploying our units onto the battlefield, but first there are some different zones to note. So these zones here are the enemy zones. Now here, this is the blue side, so this is not an enemy zone for them. This is their front line. So if we're deploying one of our units, we can never deploy or force deploy a unit into an enemy zone, which would be this area for blue. So like I said, this would be blue's front line right here. And the other player, green, this would be their front line. And these darker spaces behind their front line is behind enemy lines. So if green were to get 4 units behind in these locations here, then the game would be over. So now let's go ahead and resolve this headquarters command card with these 2 deploys there. So whenever you deploy a unit, you can place it on the front line, and if it's an infantry unit, you can place it behind another unit you have already out on the battlefield like that. Now you can never deploy a unit that has the face value of another unit that you already have out on the battlefield. For example, we had assigned this 1 die to be deployed. Now say I had already had this 1 die out here on the battlefield, I could not deploy this unit. Now back to the example of the armored division. If I were deploying an armored division, I would have to place my armored division on my front line. I could not deploy it behind a unit that I have on the battlefield. It must start on the front line. So for the armored division, the top die is the face value that you use to determine the restriction of whether or not you can place it. So for instance, if I had this 5 die out here, I would not have been able to place this armored division. But however, whenever you are doing engagement, you will take the value of both the die, so that'd be 10, and that would be their strength. Now, if on any of your cards you see the words force deploy and you're able to do that action, basically that means you can ignore the restriction of the face value. So for instance, if I had this card that I had assigned that die to, I could force deploy a unit from my reserve with the value matching to the assigned unit here. So I would take a 5 from my reserve and I could put it out on the battlefield on the front line or behind a unit, even though I already have a 5 unit out there. So force deploy just means you can ignore that restriction. So let's go over this last unit we assigned here on the headquarters card. So we had put a unit here to advance, so I'm going to return this unit to the barracks. And now what I can do is I can choose 1 unit out on the battlefield to advance. So like I had mentioned earlier, if it's a light infantry unit, so for example this 2 and this 1, they can move up to 2 spaces forward or diagonally. So I could go 1, 2, or I could go 1, 2. So I can do that for one of these units. Or you can move the armored division 1 space as well, or you can move one of your heavy infantries 1 space as well. So it's important to note, whenever you're advancing, you're generally going to be moving straight forward or diagonally, but the one spot where you can move side to side is on your own front line. So I could move side to side here. So moving on to the 5th phase of your turn is advancing deployed units, and this is optional. So what you're going to do is you can move every unit you have out here that's deployed, you can move it by the advancement rules. So whether it's light infantry, heavy infantry, or armored division. So I can move all of these units. So let's say I wanted to move this one up twice, I wanted to move this one 1, 2, I wanted to move this one once, and this one once as well. That would be the 5th phase of my turn. When advancing, if you happen to advance into a location where an enemy's unit is, then you have to deal with engagement. So basically what you do is you take the difference between the die, and whoever has the greater value wins the engagement. So for instance, this has a 6 and a 5, so my unit would be taken off, and then this unit would now become a 1. Now, for the armor divisions in engagement, you will be dealing with the top die first. So let's say that green is advancing into this space. So green would remove their die and deal 4 damage to that top die, and that would now become a 1. And another thing to note is that light infantry cannot deal any damage to armored divisions. Now, any destroyed units from engagement, these units are placed in your reserve and not returned to your barracks. The 6th and final phase of your turn is refreshing tactical advantage cards. So what you're going to do is you're just going to be rotating these out. So for example, if no one had used these 3 cards on this turn, then I am going to take this last card out to the discard pile, shift these down 1 spot, and then flip over the next card. Now let's go over a few other various rules to the game. So if I were to assign units and credit here, instead, whenever I go to resolve this card, instead of taking this action here, I can instead get a research token from the supply. So let's look at some of these mine cards. This one says place up to 3 mines on an open space surrounding a unit you own. So what you can do, if I had assigned units and was able to take that action, you're going to grab 3 mines from the supply and place it on open spaces in front of your units here. So I could put these 3 mines right here in front of my unit. You could have also put these mines anywhere surrounding that unit as long as there's not another mine or another unit as well. Now mines can be advanced onto, but whenever a unit advances onto a mine, you have to resolve the damage. So let's say that this green unit was marching along and moved on to this mine here. So what you're going to have to do is grab a dice, roll it, and you're going to deal that damage to that unit. So this unit would be killed from the land mine and you would remove the mine. Now let's go over some of these facility cards that you will pick out at the beginning of the game. So these locations are corresponding to these targets on the board. So this 1 target here corresponds to this location and to here. So basically, if you have a unit on one of these locations on the battlefield, then that means you control this facility and can take this action. So for instance, if I am here and then my next turn comes up, I would do this start of turn action. This says gain 1 credit at the start of your turn. If ever at the start of your turn you have no units in your barracks, you can call for emergency relief. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab 1 of your units from your reserve and 3 credits, and you will add that to your barracks. But however, on that turn, you will not be able to assign anything on your command cards and other cards. So players are going to keep going back and forth, taking turns until the game is over. And remember, the game is over when 1 player has 4 units on behind enemy lines. So let's say these units out here had moved all the way down here. So that's 2. And an armored division counts as 2 units as well. So say all of these units have made it to behind this enemy line, then I would win. Alright, and that is an overview of how to play Dice Command. So, I love this game. It's a lot of fun. I love the way the combat is handled. I also enjoy dice placement and upgrading stuff. So this this game I feel like was made just for me, because that's the types of games I like. So, as a reminder, we'll put a link in the description below for the Kickstarter page where you can follow and keep an eye out because it's coming out soon and you definitely won't want to miss it and you definitely will want to check this game out.
So, thanks for watching our Kickstarter preview. We look forward to bringing you more in the future, and we'll see you guys next time.